Okay, now we're on. I think we have a very strong voice altogether, so even without a microphone on, people all over the world and also hopefully in Greece can hear us today. So welcome again into Greenhouse Davos, into the evening session on energy connectivity. We have here very distinguished panelists and speakers. I will start with Mr. Jim Harris. And then we have together with us Mr. Vasilis Grigoriou. Excuse me, Mr. Mirharis, I missed telling your affiliation. Could you please inform us about your company?
Sure. I'm an author and a journalist, and I focus on disruption, disruptive innovation. And not only do I write, I consult and speak at conferences.
Great. Thank you very, very much. So, Dr. Vasilis Grigoriou, he's the CEO and Executive Chairman of the Board of Advent Technology Holdings. And we also have together with us Mr. George Linatsas, the Group Managing Director of Axia Ventures Group. So, I would like to start our today's panel discussion with a general topic on energy. The European Commission has announced the REPowerEU plan. So after the disruption of gas supplies by Russia, etc., there are new challenges with first time frame for implementation, but on the other hand, also great opportunities arise. So let's start with the basics. What would you propose as a collective effort aiming at diversification and improving the security of energy supply at regional level, Greece and Balkans? I would like to start by addressing this question to Mr. Grigoriou.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Regarding Greece, I think as part of the European Union, we have to kind of follow the mandate. The mandate says that we need to get away from, the dependence of Russian natural gas as fast as possible. Greece does not have any fossil fuels to speak about, but it has a lot of renewable energy. And the more you think about it, this is the road to independence, because we're actually projecting, 3 cents per kilowatt hour, which are ridiculous prices. And if you think all the installations in Greece so far and where it can actually be, a lot of the dependence from imports, from lignite plants and all that, they go away. What's missing is the storage, and that's why I believe, and the company that I founded, and I think we're doing pretty good, is in hydrogen. You have to have hydrogen as part of the mix if you want to really change the way we do things right now. Because the renewables are there, it's just you don't have the storage. Batteries are not good enough. I tell you as a scientist, not as a managing director of a hydrogen company. They're good for other things. They're good for smaller things. They're good for cars. They're not good for trucks. They're not good for big storage. And we need a lot of power. So in a way, Europe with this Restructure EU program, which is a very ambitious but doable program, 300 billion, about 30 in hydrogen. So again, these are big numbers. We'll put the infrastructure together. We will make more efficient electrolyzer, more efficient fuel cells. So in the end, hydrogen will be a big mix. Renewables for Greece are going to be a big thing as well. So in the end, we will achieve 2 goals. One, decarbonization, because that's a mandate and for us it's doable. And second, energy independence, security.
Before we proceed to our other speakers, I would like you to tell us some more things about your company. You are a paradigm that you make Greece proud, so we would like you to share some things with our audience.
Yeah, I mean, we have started from the labs, meaning from nowhere, and that's a very typical American story. It's not a very typical Greek story, but since I was educated in the U.S., with my partners at the time, we have embedded some things, and then, it's a long road. I think George knows the road when I had still hair and they were black. So it takes a lot of time to go from the lab to commercial thing, and some things have to happen in the meantime, like this very unfortunate event now in the Ukraine that actually have, shook the world and have shown that what we do, it's really for the, global stage. So basically, we're trying to follow logic, if you will, and the demand. It has to be demand. If there is no demand for your product, it doesn't matter how good you are or how, clean it is, people won't buy it. So now the demand is there. People want green hydrogen. I have to make sure we distinguish that. There's a lot of hydrogen in the world, but it's dirty. It comes from natural gas mostly, so just not needed anymore. Therefore, green hydrogen is something that we do. And if you actually take hydrogen and you need to do something with it, you don't burn it in an internal combustion engine. You need a fuel cell. That's another, face of the same coin, or basically, because they're both the same electrochemical reaction. It's one is the reverse of the other. So that's what we do. Fuel cells, and lately we do electrolysis as well.
Okay. Before we go to Mr. Harris, I would like first Mr. Linatsas to share with us some things about your experience and your involvement in this area from an investments point of view. What is the state of play of investments in the energy sector in Greece?
Thank you very much. There is times in life that there are certain events that can change the course of an industry, of the world that we live in, etc., etc. I feel what happened recently at the end of February 2022 in our friendly Ukraine could be one of those events if the authorities globally use this to accelerate certain things. I want to go a little bit back and say that mankind has been around for a very long period of time, and every so often there are major disruptions that change the course of our history. We haven't seen that type of disruption in the energy space, and we are comfortable sitting on coal energy and all these outdated things that all of a sudden today everybody remembered that we should not be using them. But at the time that crisis has come, and without proper planning, it's not the way to do it, but that's a different discussion. In any case, let's hope and believe that this will trigger major changes in the way we approach our energy future. I think me and Vasilis go back a long time. I happen to have watched what they did, what they've gone through the last 15 or so years. Going from a concept to a research, from a research to a lab, from a lab to be listed in New York today. It's a very long road. And sometimes people thought they were crazy. They were talking about fuel cells, hydrogen. Like, what are you talking about? Like, now all of a sudden everybody wants to talk about hydrogen and battery storage and this and that. And, we need events like that to get us out of our comfort zones. So the answer to your question is, I'm an investment banker. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an energy guy. We do a lot of things in the energy space. All of a sudden, a trend that was ESG, and it was big in the last couple of years. A lot of money has been raised. A lot more can be raised. A lot of dedicated funds started to invest in that space. But all of a sudden now, even funds that are not energy focused or green energy focused, they spin themselves like, yeah, but I do that, but it has to have a green energy element associated. Even if they raise capital to do food investments, even if they do transportation, even if they somehow spin when they go to raise the capital that, yeah, but it has to be green. It has to be, the fuel that is used to produce this type of food must be green, blah, 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 blah. And then Ukraine happened and everything got accelerated. So if we thought there is a new trend the last few years in the green space, in energy, we're like a million times, closer to things accelerating there. So what we're seeing is a lot of investors focusing more intensely into the space. looking at new sources of energy that were wild until recently, and now all of a sudden are in the vocabulary. There's going to be mistakes because, as Vasilis will say, hydrogen is not for every use, and it's not for everybody, and it's not for today. Right, Vasily? I don't want to say things that...
It is for in Europe for today, in the US it's for a little bit later, but...
It's not about every use. That's what I meant, yeah.
Now we went from, as you said very correctly, from something which it was very difficult for me to sell to friends like George at the time, so now it's like we're going to solve every problem that we have.
Exactly.
Both of them, in my opinion, were wrong positions, so the thing is in the middle.
And I will close my initial comments on that space by saying that not only this is a once-in-a-lifetime event to accelerate things that should have happened years back with proper planning, in my personal humble opinion at least, but also Greece, being we are sitting at the Greek house, and we thank you for hosting us, Irini. For Greece, this could be once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because of a unique positioning that the country has at a crossroads with some features that other neighboring countries do not have, that if they can properly take advantage of where they are now and how they make smart investments, they can position themselves strategically to be one of the most important energy hubs of the new world of energy for the decades to come. But we can come back to that later.
Before continuing this point of discussion, I would like Dr. Jim Harris, to share with us his opinion on what do you think is the most surprising thing about energy?
Great.
That people don't know about.
That people don't know about. Thanks. First off, I'm not a doctor, although I had a very good friend who called me doctor all the time. But I'm not actually. It's good enough. So thank you for that. What is the greatest source of energy in America? And it's a bit of a trick question. It is actually efficiency. If today's technology had the same efficiency as 1975, the US would be consuming 2.5 times more energy. So we don't think about efficiency as the greatest source of energy because it's invisible. I'll give you a personal example. I bought a Prius, a hybrid car, in 2004. It cost me $30,000. But over the 17 years that I owned it, it saved me $35,000 of fossil fuel. So sometimes the CapEx, the initial expenditure, will be slightly higher, but the life saving is huge. For instance, buildings use about 40% of the carbon emissions globally. And the cost to build a building is about 30%, but the cost to run it over its lifetime is 70%. So if you think really strategically upon construction, you can have the operating cost for the lifetime of the building. And, you know, we're talking now here at Davos about net zero, of course. I'll give you another example that just surprises me. In manufacturing, the greatest source of electricity use in manufacturing globally is pumping, okay? And why is this a big challenge? Because the people who design manufacturing facilities don't understand efficiency. So they have very long, skinny pipes that have a lot of bends in them. So you get a lot of friction, and you need a lot of force to move the liquids or fluids around in the manufacturing facility. But if you redesigned the facilities such that they were very short, fat pipes, you would reduce the electricity use for pumping by 97%. That is equal to half of all coal plants globally, their output. So a very tiny change in the mindset of the designer of manufacturing could eliminate half of coal. Boom. Now we have an installed base and can't do it overnight, but this kind of knowledge needs to get out. So we talk about low carbon, but energy efficiency is no carbon. So like it's even better. And in terms of energy independence, it's great. If we can get to a more efficient energy productivity, we eliminate the need. You know, in the minds of executives in Detroit, automakers, because they've refused energy efficiency for American vehicles, they've imposed a voluntary tax of hundreds of billions of dollars a year on American people. If every car in America had the fuel efficiency of a Prius, there would be zero oil imports into America. I mean, for me, these are just stunning facts that are surprising that we don't know about. The last thing I'd say is solar. And I love energy storage. We all know about Moore's law, that an exponential law that the power of the CPU doubles every 24 months while staying at the same price point. The same is true of solar power. And the cost of solar power has declined 640x since 1977, such that the second cheapest form of power, energy efficiency is the first, which is invisible. The second is solar. And we now have solar contracts for 1.04 cents per kilowatt hour. You can't even run a coal plant for 1 cent per kilowatt hour. So the solar is both CapEx and OpEx on a 20-year power purchase agreement, a PPA. So this is absolutely staggering. So here's another fact, one more that just blows me away. More energy falls on Earth from the sun in a single hour than all energy consumed globally, all countries, all forms of energy in a year. 1 hour of sun. And so if we can live within the energy of the sun and then use hydrogen storage with efficiency, Greece would not have to import any oil. And think of the balance of payments, think about the energy independence, think about the higher quality of life, that disposable income could go to more important things rather than paying a tax for fossil fuels, which are bad for CO2 and climate change. So focus on energy efficiency, on design, on teaching these principles. And energy storage is going to play a very big role because renewables, of course, we need that storage.
Yes. Then it's good that people come here in Greek House Davos to listen to all these interesting things that you have shared with us.
It's a great panel.
So, continuing from where Harris left it, a question first addressed to you, Vasily. So, can RES, renewable energy sources, in a short time frame, play a significant role in the energy mix, and what it takes to get there in a very constrained time frame, as we discussed earlier? So, are cross-border interconnections, the gas, electricity, heavy investment justified towards these targets, the energy security? What about the hydrogen projects? White Dragon from DEPA, Blue Med from Motorola, storage, hybrid hydropump in Amari, Terna, etc.
Yeah, it's basically a continuation of what you said, and I want to reiterate that, meaning that we both said the same thing, which is true. The price, solar will save us. The sun will save us. Actually, the sun saved Greece because it's the most beautiful country on earth, and we have tremendous tourism. If you go to south of Crete in the 60s, it was nothing. Now they're 5-star hotels. I say that because we have operations in northern Denmark, and there's not a nice hotel to stay. Sorry, guys. And it's unfair, but that's what it is. So the same thing with Greece. We have 2.5 times the sun that they have in northern Denmark. When again we operate there. So in a way, where are you going to make the electrolyzer plant? You're going to make it in Greece. Sorry, because you're going to store, but also to come back to your question before, a lot of the hydrogen quote-unquote is going to be used in industry. You make fertilizers, you make a lot of things that are greener. And the West really believes in the human being. You know, if you take a look, it's very human-centric. It comes from, I guess, ancient Greece, but you know, Northern Europe, the United States, all of that, they want to make sure that we have this kind of weather outside. You know, it's not full of, you know, darkness. We don't get sick at 50 or 40 or 30. We don't, you know, spend all our money to protect some oil well somewhere. If you put all these, what's called the total cost of ownership, the sun is the solution. And I think also the wind is, but people don't want really onshore wind or not in my backyard, so we can't put them offshore now or whatever. But the sun is there, okay, it's always there. So you get, as we said, hydrogen, but also you get what we call liquid fuels. You get fuels like methanol and things like that, that they're like ours without the carbon footprint. They're either carbon neutral or carbon negative. So even though these things are expensive now, not that expensive, but more expensive, as you said, the price went down 600%, as you said, or 600 times.
640 times.
Times. Okay, so it's the same thing, in my opinion, what we're going to see with hydrogen, to come back to the hydrogen projects. They're going to be PPAs, they're going to be tariffs, they're going to be things, they're going to be infrastructure, there will be subsidy, quote unquote, you know, what's called state aid. And the difference is, and that's why we have a big project also, Advent Technology that is, which is called Green Hippo, and we're, you know, up there now in the discussions with DG Comp and everything, this important project of common European interest. Unlike the photovoltaics, Europe has a chance to have an industry. Now you say, I want 1 giga of photovoltaics, go to China. Okay, they're not that good of electrolyzers in China. We have now the technology. We, Europeans, if you will, mostly. So why not build an industry around it that A, you control the supply, and basically you're the demand, because Europe is the demand, realistically. The US has a lot of natural gas, okay, depending on the administration, green or not green, efficiency is very important, but Europe does not have fossil fuels. Europe does not have natural gas. It needs to import it. It's going to import it from the United States now. With LNG, it's going to import it from, you know, Russia used to do it. These are political decisions. You have the sun. You can be independent. Not 100% the first day, but in my opinion, and that's what drives me sometimes crazy, George, you know me for a long time, and I'm a scientist, I say, this is the logical solution. It's not the brave solution. It's not the crazy solution. The crazy solution is the other solution. So why are we fighting ourselves in the end? Because in the end, we will all percolate to this. You know, we will have these projects. We have them in Northern Europe. I think they're very ideal for the South. All right, if we, you know, lose 2-3 years, we're not going to have the progress that we expect. You know, Spain will have, because Spain has a very big project already. Portugal will have, and I think will come later. I think it's a great opportunity right now to bring these jobs to Greece and to Europe, decarbonize our you know, neck of the wood, and also have this independence that we want, and truly, really decarbonize, because in Greece we're talking only about 10 to 12% lignite. That's how much we have now. It's not that much. You know, before it was 60%, you know, 3 decades ago. It's not that much. So you can bring these new technologies in the mix and still be, you know, within reason. We don't have to have these uber expensive propositions.
Thank you very much, Vasilis. That was very enlightening. So, George, Greece, as you know, has a lot of money to spend, as we say, to blend it with private investors' money. It has opportunities, as our speakers presented to us. And what do you see investors' appetite also to create infrastructures for innovation in energy in Greece? One investment target is the infrastructures, both in Greece and in Europe and globally. The other is what Vasilis mentioned, to create an enabling environment, and Greece serves very well about that, because it is a very blessed country, so it has the natural resources, it has the very nice hospitality infrastructures, as we said, and it also has a very good knowledge capital, human capital. So you who come across every day with investors, both local and foreign, what do you see also in the surrounding environment in technology and innovation on energy?
I'll pick up from where, well, Jim, by the way, impressed with some of the examples you gave to us. I think that I'll pick up where Vasilis left it. And, you know, Advent, for example, is a hydrogen company that is based in Greece also, not only, but in Greece also. They have certain know-how, technology, scientists, etc., that should be used, should be assisted with all these initiatives and the programs. Greece has a connectivity with the North Africa, Middle East, and from there it can be a gateway of the new energy sources to the rest of Europe. It does have Greek ship owners own and control, I think something like 24% of the global LNG carriers, which a tiny country controls 1/4 of the LNG carrier. You know how important that can be. It's not just LNG, it's the FSRUs that will be used to convert the LNG back again. What I see from an investment perspective is that some global players, strategic and financial investors in the space of energy, look at Greece and say, okay, so they have a lot of sun. They have a huge pipeline of green energy assets that need investments to be converted into operating assets. But probably locally they don't have the resources and the financial power to do it. So what keeps us busy every day is how we transact with these investors. We bring them in town. We help them locate the proper local partners and targets. And I see a trend where they will be using those companies that exist and their own capital to accelerate the presence. And don't be surprised if you see in a few years some of the world's largest renewable players to be based out of Greece. And I'm not just saying that. I happen to know some of the plants that are coming up and what's going on. So there is a lot of circumstantial and not only circumstantial excuses and reasons why Greece can play a vital role in going away from fossil fuels, that's the word I was looking for, fossil fuels, into the new era of more green type of fuels, whether that's hydrogen, it's the sun, it's wind power, or whatever. So, that opportunity doesn't come around often, and it's up to the European authorities and the Greek authorities to do something about it and take advantage of the opportunities right now. I'm not very hopeful because in Europe we're not good at seizing the moment and the opportunity. There's too much bureaucracy. But I think that the opportunity is there and will be there for a little bit.
Thank you very much. So I have a question to follow what you said, but I will first like to ask Jim. Well, our topic is promoting collaborations among multilateral initiatives for energy innovation. So from your global experience, what do you think could be these initiatives, multilateral initiatives for energy innovation? Could you give us, if you have any examples from other places of the world that this paradigm have worked?
So thanks for that, Iona. I'd say what comes to mind for me is a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. We're in this horrible situation where we're seeing the destruction in the Ukraine. What good could come out of that? And I think it will force countries, many have already said we will not use any Russian oil or gas. And if we were to really permanently embrace that, it would force a rethinking of the energy system and create the energy dependence we've all talked about so far. collaboration is really key. The figures, some of the figures I cited in my first comments were from Amory Lovins, who's the founder of the Rocky Mountain Institute, who's somebody who's been promoting these ideas about energy efficiency for decades. And he's somebody who he just travels and teaches. And so a collaboration with Amory as an American, you know, he would welcome it. Similarly, you know, Germany led the charge for the EU on solar with their feed-in tariff program. And once it kind of scaled up, the Chinese decided, okay, we're going to take it over, and became the #1 producers of solar panels. And so to your point, a made-in-Europe solution around storage is a defense against that, but the partnership could be with China for the panels, and you're the storage, and we work out a collaborative deal. What this war has shown is ultimately we're all interdependent. You know, like the food shortages we're experiencing because Ukraine was one. I'm Canadian. I'd say maybe Canada's the breadbasket of the world, but the Ukrainians would say the Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world. So there, you know, all we need is one ship to get stuck in the Suez Canal for 6 days, and we realize the incredible interdependence. The entire supply chain is ground to a halt. Or, you know, a 0.2 micron virus stops everything for 2 years. You know, we are very interdependent. And so it's only through collaboration that we will end up solving our problems. And so there are great resources like Amory at RMI, and we have low-cost producers, and maybe it's a reciprocal arrangement with China because they need to store their energy. We'll import this much into the EU, and you can buy our, you know, hydrogen storage systems. Just spitballing here.
We have ideas. So, Vasilis, after what Jim said, then for a small regional country like Greece, what is really the opportunity for energy innovation? So where should we target? Storage, hydrogen, green, blue, carbon capture and storage, algae? And most important, how could we promote collaboration so that these all efforts bring a sound benefit, if not leadership, in the sector and in due time?
Yeah, I want to comment a little bit on the things because this is a very nice discussion. Thank you, both of you guys, for very, you know, very good positions, in my opinion. So let's think, because really the decisions are above our pay grade. Okay, these are geopolitical decisions. If we collaborate with China or not, if the trust is lost. What I'm saying, there are two things. I agree with George. In Greece, for sure, but also in Europe, there's a lot of discussion, and sometimes the executive decision is missing, and I think we will have a decision. It is a matter of fact, okay, because we are, quote-unquote, at war. Somebody has to make a decision. We're going to do this, or we're going to do that. We cannot talk all the time, okay, because, and we've been in, you know, in a startup, as you said, you know, I'm the founder of this. So I've seen it, but I've been in bigger companies that, you know, there's a lot of opinions. You know, even all of us here, we ask, what is your opinion about this? You might have a different opinion than me. Somebody has to make a decision. Let's say if he's the decision maker, he has to make a decision. But, you know, we cannot all talk all the time. So I think that's number one. The other thing that's missing in the EU, in Greece, and in Europe, more, in my opinion, is the interdependence with the United States of America. The United States of America has the capital markets. Okay, now there is blood on the street, but the same people you know short selling us, they will be the ones to buy us tomorrow. That's how things go. And I think the problem there is inflation. It's nothing to do with the technologies and all that. So these are inefficiencies. I mean, George is an expert on this. I think when we talk about market efficiency, as a scientist, I laugh. It's always an inefficient. It's either up or above. Very seldom you're really at where you deserve to be. So why I say that? All of these big projects, we're talking they're in the billions, tens of billions, maybe hundreds of billions. They will be support, they will be funded. The acceleration will be there. It's not necessarily true that they have to come from a particular source also. So I think this interdependence, if you will, of the United States or Canada for that matter as well, to Europe, it will be an accelerated factor. So things that they will take a little bit longer, or we have to go back and forth with the committee 1 year, maybe in 3 months, we have the money to start. That's the important thing. Second, regarding Greece, as I said, to me, it's very, I think I know what it is. I'm not the one to make the decisions. As I said, we don't look at hydrogen as the solution for everything, and we don't look at in a gaseous form or a liquefied form, or we have it for transportation or anything. I think it will be a little bit of everything, and mostly for the industry. But here is the disconnect, because there is a disconnect. In Europe, in Northern Europe, we don't have renewables. Because if you want to put a photovoltaic panel in Rotterdam, might as well build a building. It's the land is very important. We had these discussions before. But there's a lot of industry around there. In Greece, we have fields, plain fields. You can put photovoltaics, do whatever, but we don't have a lot of industry to speak about. However, the projects that we're discussing right now, because these are the first wave projects, as we say, it's the first wave that hits the beach, if you will. It has to be the best of us, and we have to succeed. Because, God forbid, we lose, then people will say, oh, another hole in the water, right, to say Greek expression here, and all that. So believe it or not, even the bigger projects that we're discussing, a single refinery in Greece can take over all the production. Let's say 100,000 tons of hydrogen, 250,000 tons of hydrogen. So it's not that lot because the needs are there. And then you have all of these clean products then. And as I said, I do believe a lot in liquid fuels that they have, very low carbon footprint, these so-called e-fuels, and it will be a transition period. Because, again, and I know I'm pitching hydrogen a lot, but the point here is you have to understand it's a destination fuel. Natural gas is a transient fuel. We had petrol, we had gasoline, and then we had to go to something less, but it's still dirty. Hydrogen is the destination fuel. So regardless which of these projects will go forward, in my opinion, as part of the European Union will give the grade. So I feel for the project that we submitted, we do what we do in Greece in pan-Hellenic things to go to the university. Now these are pan-European things. Is who's going to be? Okay, if the due diligence from both technical and financial is there, I think these projects have to be the ones to go forward.
Thank you very much. So, George, to diversify a little bit from the innovation, Greece, as said, has a unique point in the region with the Revithousa LNG terminal. And after many years we have been stuck with 130,000 cubic meters of LNG capacity, then upgraded recently into the third tank. There are also new projects ahead of us in the fast lane, like the floating storage unit in the Revithousa, the FSRU of Alexandroupoli, 2 units, the Origa gas FSRU, and maybe more coming to Thessaloniki or in Volos. As we know, there is an investment movement currently. So do you think that this avalanche of new projects will be justified for the final investment decisions? We had 1 LNG, we're heading to 5 for all these reasons that were mentioned up to now. Will there be a market for that? So what is the investor's point of view and your point of view?
There is definitely a market for that. But it's all a matter of timing, meaning right now and for the foreseeable future, there is a market for 5 such units. Now, if you take 10 years to build them and to do them, there will not be a market. The neighboring countries around Greece don't have the luxury of having a Revithousa or things like that. So if you move fast with installing that capacity and also putting together the necessary pipelines and connectivity, let's call it this way, to move it to other places, there is that's the opportunity we've been talking about all this time. Bottom line, the world is changing. forcefully on us on the energy space, and the European decision makers need to act faster than they usually do to make the proper decisions at a regional, local, but more importantly, pan-European level. Because they've been very short-sighted to look at it from, what's good for me for the foreseeable future and not what's good for all of us for the long term. And that's where the problems begin. So I hope, and Vasily, you have this initiative that you mentioned to us about with the European Union. I hope the shock wakes them up to move fast. But I got to be honest, Greece is actually looking much better than some of the major European partners of Greece in going after the opportunity immediately and taking care of that. All these different investments in a fast manner is going to put them at a very advantageous position, I think.
Okay. What is your opinion? We have seen that also European Commission has imposed very heavy requirements to all the state aid programs. So for all the money that it gives to businesses from now on, whether it is from the RRF, the Recovery and Resilience Fund, or from the EU regional funds, we see that regardless of which sector a project targets, whether it is in education, in technology, in real estate, in logistics, anything, it gets a higher evaluation if it uses energy innovation in some way. And I have seen, from my standing point as a consultant in many investment projects, sometimes businesses find it difficult to exactly to merge and use energy innovation into their projects. So do you think, because we're discussing here today about initiatives, multilateral initiatives for energy innovation, I personally think that this is a good opportunity for the people that are experienced in the sector, for the experts, to help the businesses in all other sectors on how to use energy innovation in their projects. Maybe Vasilis would like to start, or Haris, I don't know, and then we can end up with...
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that, how can I say, markets should be left to as free as possible. Meaning, if somebody tries to impose to you an expensive solution, you will push back or whatever. However, come back to what we said, like an hour ago, and I'm talking now as a European, not as a Greek. We're scared. We don't know what the next winter will look like. So you got to move fast. Says, what do I don't have? Energy. Okay, what do I have to think first? Energy. So, of course, there's going to be an energy component to every project. And then there is, as I said, again, the discussion, what is efficient, what is fair, whatever. But this is the number one thing right now, so... Even
in the RRF, they get a very high score in the evaluation. If they have a
Actually, the RRF has changed now. It's a Repower EU. You know that. I mean, a big portion of it, 300 billion.
Exactly.
So if you understand the numbers, it's like humongous. All right.
Is it enough to be just a requirement in an evaluation for for businesses to apply and trying to absorb the state aid? Is this all that is needed, or
no? There are two things. This is a different environment here. Again, George knows it 10 times better than I do. In the US, you have the capital markets, things move faster. A small company like Advent can become great or go bankrupt, whatever. Here, you have to work with the banks. The big companies, will try to get a big portion of the state aid, which you would think that shouldn't be the case. The small companies should get the state aid, not the big companies. So basically, there's a whole entourage of people, organizations. We try to optimize that negotiation, if you will, right? There is 1 billion out there. How can I get it as a state aid? So that's a different business. Again, as I said, and George also said it before, this is existential for us now. So we said, okay, this is normal business. Let's pause a little bit. Let's think what we're going to do going fast. So they say, okay, take 300 billion, take 50 billion, and do something with it. If it doesn't work, then we do something else. But in the meantime, there will be people who try to optimize for their project how much money they're going to get by dressing things up a little bit. But and we have to look the devil, which is us, in the eye. You know, we have to look at the mirror and say, listen, I have a very dirty industry. Okay, sorry. You should not be the first one now to try to say, I will decarbonize the world if you don't change the industry by taking some kind of a little project, build it up, and then, as George said again, sorry, George, I use your name all the time, now I'm green. No, you're not green. You are very dirty. Okay, so you're going to pay the penalty, right? You have to pay the penalty. The penalty was for you. It's not for us. We are presumably the green ones, and we have to actually be given the opportunity to grow and give you what you want, green energy in the end. So there are two aspects to this. One is the tactical, you know, how I will, you know, position myself to get a max of state aid. And the other, in my opinion, the strategic, you know, how to use this unique opportunity, our money. It's the states don't have money out of somewhere there. They take money from the people, or they get bonds and stuff like that. You know, it doesn't come from thin air. So how are we going to take our money and get the best back to ourselves, to our community? So, and I think we should concentrate on the latter, not the first one.
So, Jim, apart from the financial incentives or financial bans, because you mentioned both, we have many financial incentives to boost energy innovation across sectors of the economy. I think in Greece and in other European countries, it is European Commission's directive. So apart from financial incentives, what else could boost energy innovation to be implemented in many sectors of the economy?
So some of the innovations are old and we've known them all along, but we've forgotten them, and some of the innovations are new. But essentially, I agree that innovation is at the heart of energy independence and our future. I've been to Greece, and it is such a beautiful country, and it's actually the favorite place I've ever visited. Now, maybe that's because I was 24, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was madly in love, and it was...
It's beautiful.
But it was so beautiful. Anyways.
Get something to do with
it. But there, every single building is painted white. And it means that there's no need for air conditioning in the houses. I was on one of the northern Sporades Islands. If every roof in the world was white, the albedo effect would save hundreds of billions. I feel like Dr. Evil. Hundreds of billions of dollars of energy in not having to cool because the buildings would be cooler. So that is an old wisdom that we seem to have forgotten. Greece knows it, but the rest of the world has forgotten that. The other is modern technology, and Huawei, a Chinese tech company, has been using AI with the largest solar installation. It's a 2.2 gigawatt installation that produces 500 billion kilowatt hours of power every single year, enough to power 6 million homes. And they've increased the efficiency of solar by 50% using tech and AI. So that's a very new example of innovation, and white roofs and white walls, an old innovation. We need both. We need to reclaim the knowledge that we have already that isn't applied. In my own country, when I fly into Toronto, you see black roofs all around the airport. It's stupid. It's really stupid. So we need both. And I was really interested in your comments on northern buildings northern Scandinavian countries not having place for solar arrays, and
Northern Europe,
Northern Europe,
like Holland, Denmark,
yeah.
Belgium.
Yeah,
space is scarce. So.
Space is scarce. The solar we need in the future is not going to be the same as the solar we've had in the past. We are now able to print solar on thin film. Think about printing newsprint, right? And then imagine the southern face of every building is clad with thin solar, so that every building becomes a power generation plant, right? for the northern hemisphere, it would be the southern faces. For southern hemisphere, it would be the northern faces. But we have this at our disposal right now. So as we go forward, innovation is going to be absolutely essential. And to your earlier question, Iona, collaboration as well. Greek needs to reteach the world about white roofs and walls.
Thank you. Yes, it would be very good to see part of this technology to be made in Greece. As I think this is how we started the discussion. I don't know, George, if you want to make a comment on that. Otherwise,
just one last thing on your question about the requirement that forces smaller companies to learn things that they don't know about how to make use of the funds with the element of the energy, especially green energy in it. Unlike other such incentives that go wasted, because of the necessity and the timing issue right now, if the use of the funds is not accelerated because they want these funds to be used, they will come up with changes to how this is structured. So this is the shock that I was talking about, which is changing everything, because you cannot sit around if you're a prime minister or president of a European country next winter, watching your people, telling them, okay, for the next 6 hours, you're not going to get any heat, but that, other neighborhood will get, because I'm hearing things like that, though. That's the planning of some minds for next winter. That's not going to work. So if they don't absorb the funds because of the requirements, and it's such the political need and the survival of these politicians, they will come up with other ways. So I'm not worried about it. The point of today's discussion is there is a lot of technologies. Some are old, some are newer. There are solutions. It's a matter of people that are making the right quick decisions. Somebody has to make the right quick decisions to put in use all these funds to accelerate the use of them. And it shouldn't come to the point that a country invades another country, but all of a sudden we realize that that country is feeding with energy sources. Germany, for example. We've been saying that to Germany for a lot of time, some of us, but no comment. So it has to accelerate things. There's no other way, because it's energy, and if people don't have energy and the use of energy, there's going to be riots in the streets. So I'm hopeful something will happen this time.
Let's hope. So, is there any other statement that you would like to do? Otherwise, I would like to pass to our audience. Does anyone want to address any questions to our speakers? Thank you.
Sure. Toby Heaps, Corporate Knights. I'm looking at what's going on in Europe, and I see Europe's leading the way globally, and it's one of the few regions where the emissions are coming down, not fast enough to do what the country said they're going to do, but almost fast enough. So it's a leading light. And I'm looking at what some countries are doing, like Italy. They have a populist government, 5-star, and they were able to mobilize, to Jim's point, 27 billion euros of public money to pay people 110% super bonuses to do retrofits of their homes, to make their homes, put insulation in, electrify their homes, to get the gas out of their homes. And they're, the 27 billion euros in a country the size of Italy in less than 18 months, and boosted their GDP by 0.7%, created 130,000 jobs. Most of that money came through Europe. Mario Draghi, no coincidence maybe, knows how to work that system. But it seems like Greece is in the European Union, has this rare natural resource in terms of the abundance of sun. And I'm wondering what's happening, what are you guys doing in Europe to pull a Draghi to get that 27 billion euros flowing so you guys can do the green hydrogen in Greece and not in Denmark where there's no sun?
Yeah, it's called Repower EU. We have the opportunity, and I think the ministers and the prime minister is aware of this unique opportunity for us to get billions because we deserve them. And as you said, it's the right fit. So, in my opinion, it will happen. The other thing is we have already a lot of... The mindset now is mature in Greece. I wasn't in Greece, I was in the United States in the 90s, but when they start putting windmills in Greece, I'm sure they will look at them as crazy people, right? The same thing here, it says, oh, we're going to have hydrogen. What is that? Well, it doesn't matter. It is good for you, as you say, and then all of the other things for efficiency and all. So I think I'm an optimist. Okay, you know me. I'm an optimist, meaning that if we're given the opportunity, we will do it. Meaning that Greece has a tremendous already installed base of renewables. Last year, I think they put another 2 giga. I think we have an astounding 900 giga of presumable, things that you can make stuff, which is preposterous, obviously, because not all of them can become something. But imagine the number. So for Greece, we're kind of there in the things, and we have to put more. Also, I think the Greek people, the people now, okay, they understand that this is the way out of the problem. You know, there are some, how I will call it, the same people say, I will not vaccinate for not other reason, for not health reason or something, but from conviction, let's say. Okay, we have, every society has them, anti-systemic people, I guess. Maybe they will be against it, maybe they say some crazy things about whatever, go back to lignite or whatever. But these are the minority, okay? The majority of the people, I think, they understand that the path forward for Greece is through the renewables. And what we're talking about now is part of the ecosystem. Okay, the financing of it, the infrastructure, the this, the that, of course, a very close collaboration and if you will, unity with major players. We said it before. There will be major players coming to Greece in energy. We have now. We put in all together, the infrastructure to be a hub. We are an infrastructure to make stuff. So you make, you transport, you import, it goes through you. All of this makes us a very important country for a small, tiny country. Okay, the same thing with the shipping industry. We're 24% of the global shipping, and we're 10 million people, or again, maybe 17 million people if you put everybody who lives abroad. It's a very small number. So I do believe also energy, and I come from tech, and I have to say I preach the tech because there is a lot of tech improvements that we can see. Even the electrolyzers, just to give you one little example, the technology is used for another industry, which is chloralkalides for a chemical process. Okay, it's not the same as it was in 1927, but trust me, they weren't looking at it that much because they were fine in what they were doing. Now that we looked at it 2-3 years ago and said, man, we can make a lot of progress here. And the European Union understands. There are technical people, experts who understand that you can go from here to there. So they say, okay, let's do it. So if you go from here to there, the power densities, the lifetimes and all that, you have different products then. It's not the same sun, as you said. So it's not your grandma's electrolyzer, as I will say as well. So just to be a little bit fun, it's later in the day.
I'm going to write that down.
Okay, so you got a quote today. So I think with the help of Europe and our determination and actually, how can I say, and doing it, because most of the times we don't do things. We're not determined, and we're always trying to find something like inertia in my mind. Like if we don't do anything, it's better for us. No, if we don't do anything, it's the worst for us. 3 years later, we'll be very late. Now you can take 100, and 3 years later, we're going to get 3. Why don't you do it today? Because you can do it. So I'm an optimistic person, and as you said, Italy, Greece, Spain. I think Greece and Spain, because of they can be closer to Africa and everything like that. Spain is very close to Morocco, from historical perspective. They will play a very big role in all this new energy transition in Europe.
No microphone, I'm fine.
Okay, Mrs. Marcheki.
Yes. Very quick question. Would this discussion have been different 6 months ago? When you walk around the streets of Davos, everybody's talking about inflation. Obviously, all these projects that you're talking about are very, very sensitive to the situation. I understand the free money argument. I understand the empowering argument, but it's all about if the project makes sense. So would this discussion have been different from your point of view if we were here 6 months before?
I can start, maybe somebody else. Absolutely. The magnitude will be different, and it has to do with cost. All right, just cost. It's just cost. If you make things at scale, if you take a look at the global landscape, it's a McKinsey, report, and I used to show it before Ukraine. Okay, before Ukraine, September last year. All the projects are in Europe. Very little projects in Australia, very little projects in Japan, little projects in China. All the projects are in Europe. But still, there were, let's say, 17 giga, all of them. Now, we had this meeting with Commissioner Bertrand 2 weeks ago, 160 giga Europe till 2030. Who's going to make all of this? We're going to make. We're 30 companies there. We signed the declaration. So, of course, it's a completely different discussion. The acceleration, as we said before, is tremendous. You try to bring 10 years in 3. So it's a completely different discussion because of that. Otherwise, you will go slower. The US, as I said, even slower. The US really doesn't care for hydrogen, in my opinion, that much, or all these renewables. I mean, they care, but they don't really care because they have very free natural gas. And that's, think about it. That's the new export commodity, if you will. But that point in time was catalytic, if you will. So absolutely, yes.
I want to tell a little story. I was in Nepal after getting married in 1998. Very beautiful country. Not as beautiful as Greece, but a very beautiful country. And I wanted to make a phone call back to Canada, where I'm from. And at the time, it was 300 Nepalese rupees. But I went instead into an internet cafe and I put on a little headset and made what we now call a VoIP call, Voice over Internet Protocol, for 10 rupees a minute. So 300 rupees, 10 rupees a minute. So I predicted all long distance would be free within 7 years. And of course, we had Skype in 2003, so I was off by 2 years. But here in Davos, I made a three-way call to somebody in America, somebody in Canada, and myself in Davos, all on either WhatsApp or, one of those. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was WhatsApp, at zero cost to a telco. So the point I want to make here is that technology can be hugely deflationary. And in a time of inflation due to, for instance, fossil fuels, if we eliminate fossil fuel imports into Greece, we don't experience the inflation that oil-dependent countries do have. And therefore, we have to innovate, not just for the planetary reason, but for economic reasons, because innovation is deflationary. It gives us a better quality of life. And so that declining cost curve on solar to 1 cent a kilowatt hour, the largest source of new power other than efficiency in the US is solar, because it's the cheapest, both CapEx and OpEx. So you just can't beat it. So we need to pursue these deflationary strategies in an inflationary world.
So is there any other question from the audience? Back there? Okay. If George, you wanted to say something? Okay. So thank you all very much, first you, for this very interesting dialogue that we had, and diversified dialogue. I think we touched upon many aspects of the subject. And thank you also for the questions and your patience. And this is it for now. So, and let's keep the good ones, and let's hope that in next year we will have more things to say and more results maybe. Okay. Thank you. Good night.